Introduction to Property Law. Property law is a foundational pillar of the American legal system, governing how individuals and entities interact with the resources and land around them. It is not merely a collection of rules about ownership, but rather a complex bundle of rights that defines the relationship between people concerning things. These rights include the power to possess, use, exclude others, and transfer the property to someone else. Because these rules are primarily established at the state level, they can vary significantly depending on geography, though they share a common English common law heritage. Understanding these principles is essential for navigating everything from buying a home to protecting intellectual creations. The distinction between real property and personal property is the most basic division in the field. Real property refers to land and anything permanently attached to it, such as buildings, trees, and mineral rights beneath the surface. Personal property, often called chattels, encompasses everything else that is movable, ranging from a smartphone to a car or a stock certificate. While both types are protected by law, the rules for transferring real estate are much more formal and require written documentation. This distinction ensures that the most permanent assets in society are managed with a high degree of transparency and public record-keeping. At the heart of property ownership is the concept of estates in land, which determines the duration and nature of one's interest in a property. The most complete form of ownership is known as fee simple absolute, which grants the owner total control for an indefinite period. However, property can also be held in life estates, where ownership lasts only for the duration of a specific person's life. After that person passes away, the property might revert to the original owner or pass to a third party known as a remainder man. This tiered system allows for complex family and commercial arrangements that span generations. Concurrent ownership occurs when two or more people hold title to the same piece of property simultaneously. The most common forms are tenancy in common and joint tenancy, each carrying different implications for what happens when one owner dies. In a joint tenancy, the right of survivorship means the deceased owner's share automatically passes to the surviving owners. Tenancy in common, conversely, allows an owner to leave their share to whoever they choose in a will. These structures are vital for married couples, business partners, and heirs who must share assets without constant litigation. The power to exclude others is often cited by the Supreme Court as one of the most essential sticks in the bundle of property rights. This is the legal basis for the law of trespass, which allows an owner to prevent others from entering their land without permission. However, this right is not absolute and is often balanced against public necessity or civil rights. For instance, emergency responders can enter private property to save lives, and owners of public accommodations, like hotels, cannot exclude people based on race or religion. The law constantly mediates the tension between private autonomy and the needs of the broader community. Adverse possession is one of the more controversial aspects of property law, allowing a person to gain legal title to land they do not own. For this to happen, the person must occupy the land openly, notoriously, and continuously for a period defined by state law, usually ranging from 5 to 20 years. This doctrine is designed to encourage the productive use of land and to clear up old title disputes where boundaries have been ignored for decades. While it may seem like legalized theft, it serves a practical purpose in ensuring that land does not sit idle or stuck in legal limbo. It forces owners to be diligent about monitoring their boundaries. Transferring real estate is a highly regulated process involving deeds and titles. A deed is the legal document that transfers ownership from the grantor to the grantee, and it must be delivered to be effective. Most jurisdictions use a recording system, where deeds are filed in a county office to provide public notice of who owns what. This system protects bona fide purchasers who buy land without knowing that someone else might have a secret claim to it. Without a reliable recording system, the real estate market would collapse under the weight of uncertainty and fraud. Land use regulation limits what an owner can actually do with their property, primarily through local zoning laws. Municipalities divide land into residential, commercial, and industrial zones to prevent incompatible uses, such as a noisy factory opening next to a quiet neighborhood. While an owner generally has the right to build on their land, they must comply with setback requirements, height limits, and environmental regulations. If a regulation goes too far and deprives an owner of all economically viable use, it may be considered a regulatory taking. In such cases, the government may be required to compensate the owner under the Fifth Amendment. Immense domain is the government's power to take private property for public use, provided they pay just compensation. This power is found in the Takings Clause of the Fifth Amendment and is often used for infrastructure projects like highways or schools. The definition of public use was famously expanded by the Supreme Court to include economic development that benefits the community at large. This remains a deeply polarizing topic as it pits the government's developmental goals against the sanctity of private homeownership. It highlights the reality that property rights are always subject to the overarching needs of the state. Easements are non-possessory interests that allow one person to use another person's land for a specific purpose. A common example is a utility company's right to run power lines across a backyard, or a neighbor's right to use a shared driveway to reach the street. Easements can be created by a formal written agreement, by long-standing use, or by absolute necessity. They run with the land, meaning that if the property is sold, the new owner is still bound by the existing easement. This allows for efficient sharing of resources and access points in densely populated or landlocked areas. The landlord-tenant relationship is a specialized branch of property law, known as non-freehold estates. In this arrangement, the tenant possesses the property for a set period, but the landlord retains the reversionary interest to take it back later. Modern law has shifted from viewing leases as simple contracts to viewing them as transfers of property interests that include a warranty of habitability. This means landlords are legally required to keep the premises safe and livable, regardless of what the lease says. It represents a significant evolution in protecting consumers and ensuring basic standards of housing in the United States. Finally, intellectual property has become an increasingly vital part of the legal landscape in the digital age. This category includes patents, copyrights, and trademarks that protect creations of the mind rather than physical land or objects. While you can't touch a patent, the law treats it as a property right that can be sold, licensed, or inherited. These laws aim to strike a balance between rewarding creators for their innovation and allowing the public to eventually benefit from new ideas. As technology advances, property law continues to adapt, proving that its core principles are flexible enough to govern the soil beneath our feet and the code in our computers. We welcome you to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more informative videos on real estate, business, and the law. Thank you.